Thank you so much, Ben, for the kind introduction. Thanks so much as well, the organizers team, for having me. It's a huge honor. And so, who's ready to have the best Monday morning ever? Yeah? Awesome. I'm going to time this, and let's dive right in. I'll start with a quote. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. What I want to show you this beautiful Monday morning is that biology and biohacking is our superpower, our magic power. And that raises one very important question. Is biohacking the next great software revolution? Well, given what we've seen in the movie, given the theme of the conference, I can say, yes, duh. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the conference. Okay. I'm Elsa, as you know, and I live in the future. I want to take you on a journey to biologize the world. As Ben put so nicely, what it means is to create a world that works for all living things. It means to use science and technology to solve humanity's biggest problems like climate change, but it also means using biology as technology to become a multiplanetary species. And my talk will contain all those elements and hopefully take you on this kind of journey. So I'm not a software engineer, like many of you. I'm a bioengineer. So I tinker with living systems. It's called a synthetic biologist. And then I became a biotech VC, so I helped invest in, build, and launch into the next generation of groundbreaking startups. And now I'm a futurist. So for instance, I helped biologize one of the world's biggest tech companies. But why biology? And why now? Because it's as exciting today, right now, in biology as it was in the computer industry in the early 70s. And I know all of you know better than me what this is. The Apple II, when computers became personal. And we're witnessing a profound parallel right now in biology. We can design, build, and test artificial organisms entirely in the cloud. And that's not just some future technobabble. That's happening right now with technologies that exist today. And these are all the trends. You will see human augmentation is part of that. The human augmentation market, it has a size of about $2.5 billion right now, and it's raising about 30% annually. Biohacking and human augmentation was also named one of the key breakthrough technologies by Gartner, who are making this Gartner hype cycle. Now, admittedly, all these things look quite maybe confusing and complex or abstract. So let me show you what it means. Let me show you how such a world looks like. Welcome to the age of biotech, the century of biotech. It's an age when artists can recreate the faces of complete strangers from nothing but the DNA samples found in the street. Now, I don't know where the artist gathered all this DNA, but you might want to check if your face is hanging up there. The middle image isn't just a bold fashion statement. It's a sophisticated symbiosis between wearables, microfluidics, and biology. So this thing is a living microbial factory, and it synthesizes stuff as you walk in the sunlight, close at night, and in a couple of years, something like this could power your phone. Lastly, it's an age when AI and algorithms design chairs inspired by human bone structures. Now, congratulations, because all of you are the product of 4.5 billion years of evolution. You're the product the survivors of genetic replicators channeled through an unbroken chain of cell divisions. And this is now where we're going to zoom in. This thing is about 1 millimeter in size. It's a water bear or tardigrade. It's a pretty strange creature. But 1 millimeter may sound really, really tiny to you, right? But compared to what we're going to look at, it's actually humongous. So if we zoom in, another 10 times smaller, we have the diameter of a human hair. Another 10 times smaller, we have the size of a human red blood cell. We go 100 times smaller, we have the size of the HIV virus. Another roughly 100 times smaller, we have the double helix of the DNA. Take half of that, you have about 1 nanometer. So this is essentially an assembly of organic chemistry, and the sequence in which stuff comes together is the genetic code. At the nanoscale, though, things get really, really weird, especially when we throw in the chaos of life into the mix. So biologists are not just the software engineers of life. We are also explorers, like astronauts, pushing the boundaries, exploring really strange worlds. So for instance, one such weird phenomenon is self-assembly. So if you have like a little mug, and you put some kind of soup in it, you put all your disassembled parts, let's say from an iPhone in it, you keep it nice and warm at body temperature, shake it a little bit, and moments later, out comes an iPhone. What's really weird, though, is that biohacking is accelerating exponentially fast. And I will show you just how fast. So biology as an information technology is becoming increasingly distributed, personalized, and democratized. This was one of the first DNA sequencing machines, and the first living thing sequenced was a bacteriophage in 1977. Today, though, sequencing looks a bit different. The object in the red square is a handheld DNA sequencer called the Minion, made by a company called Oxford Nanopore. And that's actually already 2 generations old. And this is Kate. She looks really happy, right? And she has every right to be, because this isn't just any lab on Earth. Kate Rubin is an astronaut from NASA, and she has just sequenced a living thing on the International Space Station in microgravity. It's really astounding. Now, synthetic biologists have also actually partitioned the entire hard drive of a living species called the Syn3 for synthetic organism number 3, and bootstrapped it to run that software of life on just a minimum of 500 genes. It's a fraction of what it normally would be. Now, they've also rebooted an entire species and taken out all the software from the first species, put in the software of another species, and then the first species started synthesizing all the stuff and all the protein from the new species. And researchers around the world are racing to write an entirely new organism from scratch, the Synthetic Yeast Project. When I read about this paper, I wondered, how does it sound? So, there should be sound. Can we get some sound? Okay, let's try again. Nope. Sorry about that. We tested it before. Oh. This is how it sounds, okay? This is this organism. So what I did is I took the genetic code from the paper sent it to my friend Stuart, and Stuart is a composer in the UK who specializes in converting genetic code into this beautiful classical music that you're hearing right now. And you can actually sequence your genome and send it to him, and he will convert it into a beautiful orchestral piece to have your own genomic music. And I'm pretty sure it would sound beautiful because what you're hearing now is just this bacteria. But then we discovered something even more powerful, a tool that eroded the cost of genetic engineering 99% overnight. CRISPR. So the wobbly, green, glowing creatures, and I told you it's an alien world, right? I promised you that. What you can see here is the deadliest creature on the planet. They enjoy a little bit of genocide for breakfast, kill trillions without us even noticing. Lucky for us, though, they only attack bacteria. So this is a bacteriophage, a virus that infects bacteria. Now, between phages and bacteria, there has been billions of years of a genetic arms race. And lucky for us, bacteria have evolved something called CRISPR-Cas9. It's a really powerful seek and destroy protein complex that will go and hunt the phage DNA, cut it with molecular scissors, and destroy it. Now, two scientists a couple years ago called Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, they discovered something astounding. Is that they can take this machinery and edit live DNA and have it overwrite something that we design. So CRISPR lets us edit the source code of any living species. And given that there are about 3,000 hereditary genetic diseases that are based on an error in that DNA code, the hope for CRISPR is really to end some of our most debilitating diseases. It's really an explosion of CRISPR and genomics. And you can see this in these numbers here. It cost $2.7 billion and took almost 15 years to sequence the first full human genome. Would you really wait that long and pay that much to get your genome sequenced? Yeah, me neither. Today, though, we can do it for about $1,000 in less than 2 days. And that's so much faster than Moore's law. If you would plot that on a linear curve, you'd see biology as an information technology is outpacing Moore's law by about 3 times. Now, Mr. Microsoft himself said to Wired, if he were young today, he wouldn't hack computers anymore. He would hack biology. And he's right, because that's the future. And so biohacking garages are already a reality today. This is my friend Josiah, and he's the founder of a company called the Odin. And it lets you literally mail order a CRISPR kit on the internet that lets you CRISPR edit DNA at home, in your bedroom, in your bathroom, in the kitchen, literally in your garage. And he was happy for me to share this 1-minute video with you.
As a synthetic biologist at NASA, I've often found myself working alone. And as a single scientist, I could only accomplish so much. I began to think, what if the scientific population of the world doubled? And what if the lab I had at NASA could be found on a kitchen table? I have spent the past several months developing protocols and kits so people can perform safe experiments with modern technologies like CRISPR in their home. We are offering 2 different CRISPR experimental kits, one for those interested in prokaryotic systems like bacteria, and the other for those interested in eukaryotic systems like yeast. Each kit comes with everything you need to perform cutting-edge science experiments, along with detailed written and video protocols.
Don't drink whiskey in the lab.
So now the question is, If you had access to cutting-edge synthetic biology tools, what would you create?
And that is really a powerful question. A thought that I want to leave you with is biohacking isn't something to be feared, okay? Because the movement of biohacking lets us break out these really powerful tools from behind the thick walls of corporations and the ivory tower and gives us into the hands of everybody. So like Ben said, we're really the co-creators of the future. But it also means we have an amazing responsibility. Our world needs citizenry with minds wide awake for operating the language of biology to create positive futures together. So we've seen that we can program cells as high-precision nanoscale microbial factories. So cells have become everything factories to feed, clothe, and shelter humanity. It's astounding. And now I want to show you some examples of how that looks like. Let me ask you a question first, though. Who here in the room would drink coffee fermented by microbes? Show of hands. Yeah. For a Monday morning, I have expected a bit more. That's about 40%. Who would drink a health drink infused with living algae? Yeah, people getting a bit more brave, yeah. 45%, 50%. But the cellular agriculture revolution is also letting us have chicken-free chicken, egg-free egg white, there's cow-free cow milk, sushi-free sushi, and glow-in-the-dark beer that you create with a CRISPR kit at home from the company I just showed you, right? This is a company, a spin-out from my alma mater, Imperial College London, and their vision is to end plastic bottles. This is a material from algae, and they use it to create this transparent, edible membrane. So instead of having a water bottle, you literally have a water blob that you just eat. It's pretty fascinating. Another company, one that I backed in my previous job, is called Alginate. And they use one of the most fast-growing materials on Earth, a green algae, better known as kelp, and use an eco-friendly wet spinning technique to make it into fibers and create this shoe. Now, when you're done running, after a year or two, you can literally throw it in a garden and it will compost. That's pretty cool. When I spoke on a panel with Dan Widmeyer, the CEO and founder of a company called Bolt Threads, I got a chance to wear this. Now, I don't usually wear ties, as you can see, but it was pretty cool because this is a synthetic spider silk tie. And it was amazing to wear a piece of apparel that was grown in a bioreactor. Another company I backed is called Cell-Free Tech, and they're making biological pixels to make the biodisplays of the future. Now, this is a protein from jellyfish. It is fluorescent. But the cool thing about this is that doesn't even require cells anymore. So they just break out the billion-year-old processor in the cell, and they have that cell mix synthesize their fluorescent protein, and that's what you can see. You can even use these biological pixels to play Tetris. I'll show you in just a second. That's how it looks like. I can kind of, in my mind, hear the sound. Dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, da. And lastly, the Mush Loom. So in tech and biotech, we have do-it-yourself, right? But in biotech, we also have grow-it-yourself. So this is a lamp that you can literally grow yourself, and it's made of mycelium, which are the roots of mushroom. It's really robust, lightweight. Now, the amazing thing about biohacking is that it's not just highly trained scientists or do-it-yourself scientists who can hack biological systems. This is the iTEM competition, and these are literally high school students building biological machines, and it stands for International Competition for Genetically Engineered Machines. I took part in this in 2010, which now makes me feel so old, but still a millennial, and I was also a judge, and it was really inspiring to see what students and high school students come up with, what they build with genetic software just over the summer with really limited time, really limited budgets. So the question really becomes, what will you build with genetic software? Bio is getting digitized, but tech is getting biologized. So there are a number of the biggest tech companies who are really looking to get into health, like Amazon with the pharmaceutical supply chain, Google with the glucose reading, smart contact lens that is still in development, or Apple collaborating with a company in Australia called Cochlear, named after part of the inner ear. And they're turning us into cyborgs. So it's an implantable hearing aid for the hard of hearing that lets them take a phone call from the iPhone directly in their ear. So it's a pretty exciting future, hopefully, not a dystopia like we saw it, but a future in which we can really augment our abilities and end our disabilities with science, with technology. $1.3 billion is the valuation of the first biotech unicorn called Ginkgo Bioworks. They're an organism company, and they're literally the Apple of the biology world. So this stuff is really powerful because we are witnessing right now this virtuous cycle of biology at the intersection of technology. There's tremendous potential, and because there's a flow of capital, and because there's capital, there's talent, and there's tools developed, which then creates more actual real solutions, which in turn repeats the cycle. Remember this image from the very beginning. These are streptomyces. They're bacteria that live in the soil. It's not so exciting, right? But this is Jake and Dakota. And now in tech, we mine crypto, Bitcoin. But in biotech, we mine microbes. What they're building is the Microbe Miner. It lets them send out these kits that they're putting together, get samples of the bacteria from people, and then what they do is they mine the genome to trigger a powerful antibiotic genetic factory and turn this microbe into the factory of new antimicrobiotics. And that's what you can see here in pink. So it's not just food and new materials that are being revolutionized by biohacking, but also health. So startups today are creating molecular shuttles to funnel in molecules, maybe in the future CRISPR molecules, into the cell. And that's what you can see here in green fluorescent. They're accelerating cancer diagnostics from 3 days to just 2 hours. They're building AI engines to accelerate cancer drug discovery. They're building molecular machines to store all of your data in DNA that fits in the palm of your hand. They're building artificial neurons on a petri dish to give drones a sense of smell. It's really incredible. So what I want to show you is the future is now. It's just not evenly distributed yet, as William Gibson would say. And science fiction, hopefully in the best way, has become our reality today. It was like 15 or 20 years old when this book changed my life. Not Jurassic Park, but it's the same author, the Andromeda Strain. And what it showed me is this tremendous power of the invisible software of life. And I wondered, can we really just hack this like computers? And it inspired me to do my very best to make science fiction real with science and technology. So I want to show you now how to become a cyborg, something we've heard now a few times, and I'm sure there are like at least 10 other cyborgs in the room. Now this is a demo, and if you're squeamish, please look away.
Patrick Kramer of Diggiwell and Elsa Sotiriadis of Pioneers will be very brave now. So welcome on the stage, please, Patrick and Elsa.
The brave volunteers.
Welcome on stage and give me a high five as well. Thank you very much. And hello, Patrick. So.
What we are going to do here is a live chip implantation on stage. And we have a wonderful volunteer, Elsa, here. And I'm going to do the procedure now.
An applaud for the brave
volunteer. A big hand of applause for Elsa.
Really brave, actually. I think it's amazingly brave.
Now's the moment to look away.
Girl, that's amazing. And I think we're done. Elsa, you've just turned into a cyborg. Holy shit. Holy shit. What's going to happen?
So, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say, dear humans, thank you for that. And I'll hold this a bit into the camera. Still at Pioneers. Okay, something happened.
Something happened.
It's now success already. Did something happen on Twitter of Pioneers? This would now be the other phone here.
Okay.
It worked?
Yes, it bloody worked. It bloody worked. This is what you wanted, isn't it?
This is what I wanted.
So your hand just tweeted?
My hand just tweeted.
Holy fuck.
It's this hand, by the way. So, and that's the tweet I sent from my hand. It was a pre-programmed chip, and because they only have 88 bytes of storage, which, as you know, is tiny, tiny, a friend of mine helped me do a webhook, so we can do a little bit more with it. Remember that genetic orchestra that I played? That's the second command it did. And that's someone that tweeted. So it was tweet, genetic orchestra, tweet, genetic orchestra. And we are entering a world where we can do pretty amazing things with technology. Let me ask you first. We're going to do a quick Star Trek versus Star Wars. Who loves Star Trek? Yeah, 40%. Who are the Star Wars people? Wow. So like about 60%. Okay. Surprise. Awesome. So even if you like Star Wars better, you'll still know about the tricorder from Star Trek, right? So this handheld device that instantly lets you diagnose every disease. Sounds like science fiction, but the X Prize Foundation posed a challenge. Make the tricorder real. And so what they wanted teams to do is the device should weigh no more than 5 pounds, so it has to be handheld, continuously monitor 5 vital signs, and detect 13 different disease states. Last April, there was a winner. That's the device you can see. It's called Basil Leaf Technologies, and they have even exceeded these expectations. So their device can detect 43 different disease states. And they're doing clinical trials now. So this is a shoebox-sized kit with an automated dialogue that tells you if you need to do a finger prick or put on a patch. And when you do the test, a few moments later, you get a result. And they want to bring this to market for $200 and give access to modern healthcare to everyone in the world. And so science fiction has a really important function. It's to inspire us and also pose the right questions. Now we've seen biohacking lets us manipulate the genetic code and cells and our own bodies. But it's much bigger than that. For now, that's our only home. And boy, are we in trouble. If you still think climate change isn't real, then look at these images. This is London 4 years ago. I live there. I cycle to work. I care about this. This is the Arctic ice shelf breaking off, a piece the size of Dakota, 2 years ago. This is Venice 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. And California right now. It's really heartbreaking that innocent people lose their homes, don't have air to breathe because of climate change. We have eradicated 60% of all living things on this planet. We might be headed towards the 6th mass extinction. It's an age when elephants evolve away from having tusks because of us, because of humans. But I don't want to repeat all the horrific headlines. We all know this is a huge challenge for humanity, and we have to solve it in this decade. Now, the good news is, the most ancient, the most magnificent, efficient, powerful design language you've never heard of is called biomimicry. What it means is designing with non-anthropogenic principles in mind. It's designing with biology, with the code of life. Now, we need to make our economy circular. Our entire economy is based on extraction from the natural world. We extract, we make, we dispose, and each step creates huge problems. But if we circularize it, it will be based on reuse, recycle, and reduce. And the circular economy is a $4.5 trillion opportunity. And biology is so powerful because it's a global network transaction system of molecular reactions. And not just biomolecules, okay? Organic chemistry as well. The main thing, though, is that waste is value. And that's one example of applying biomimicry to solve problems in sustainability and climate change. This is called Biosynthetica. It's a module that contains live algae. So we've heard algae a few times now. They're really powerful. So one module of this can filter and capture and store 1 kilogram of CO2 per day, every single day. That's as much as 20 grown trees. The beautiful thing is, so these algae will eat up the CO2 that filters in at the bottom of the molecule and create new biomass that can be harvested to build new modules of this, and let out fresh CO2 that diffuses into the urban microclimate. So this is a really beautiful solution. Waste is value. And using digital biology and biohacking, we can really create a world of abundance, not just on Earth, even a bit further than that. So if we learn to feed 9 billion people in the future, 66% of which will live in cities by 2050, we can learn about building self-sustaining cities on Earth or on Mars. If we can grow meat in petri dishes, we can end animal farming, which is responsible for about 14% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And there's a real climate case for bringing extinct species back. If we can prevent the permafrost from thawing and releasing about 1.4 trillion tons of CO2 into the atmosphere, we've accomplished something amazing. And now the permafrost isn't just some small white spot somewhere in the world. It actually covers 24% of the entire northern hemisphere. And repopulating it keeps it cooler. Now, in '61, Kennedy gave his famous moonshot speech. And in '69, the Apollo 11 mission landed 2 people on the moon. A lot has happened since then, and we need new moonshots. And I promised you, biohacking and biology is much bigger than even Earth. So our new moonshot needs to be a Mars shot. That's the biggest engineering problem imaginable. Now, let's take a look at where we're going. Mars is about 250 million miles away. It takes astronauts about 8 months to get there. And that's only one issue. Mars is only about 40% of Earth's gravity, so it's a microgravity environment, which means it turns us basically into jelly over time. It also has basically a non-existent atmosphere, which means it's bombarded by cosmic rays all the time. You can't breathe on Mars. It's a big bummer, because the atmosphere is essentially entirely composed of CO2, and it's freaking cold there. So it doesn't sound very habitable, does it? But actually, so the first step will be to build an interstellar transport system. And okay, biology is probably not so critical to that, but to terraform Mars, it will be. So this is the zip code we're thinking about terraforming. And now, the good news is the most popular plan might actually really align with our expertise as a species. So the first thing is the warming Mars. And the most popular plan for that is melting the ice caps on Mars, it's dry ice, and releasing all the CO2 in the atmosphere. Sounds familiar? Creating an atmosphere, creating a greenhouse gas effect, and warming Mars. Now this, we have sorted, we can do that, right? Now there are a few more challenges. It was in 2011 when I had a meeting at NASA Ames Research Center that really transformed my thinking about creatures. So I learned about astrobiology, and it became clear to me that these custom-designed creatures can really build us, not just build a self-sustaining home on Earth, but build a home among the stars. Now this is the big freaking rocket that SpaceX is developing. Now the interesting thing is it's composed of Raptor engines, 42 Raptor engines that create about 128 meganewton thrust. It's the biggest, most potent rocket ever built by humankind. And it's designed to launch about 250 tons of stuff into orbit and get us to Mars. The really amazing thing is it runs on methane. That's in the realm of organic chemistry. And a combustion needs fuel, so methane. It needs oxidizer, so oxygen, and propellant. Now this guy that you all know wants to fly to Mars, and the first mission will be to find water and generate water. The second mission will be to build a propellant tank. And there is water on Mars. So it's not the polar ice cap that is the dry ice CO2. It's just beneath the surface. And NASA has already mapped out where to find it. So we can make water from the ice under the surface. We can make water from the rocks, which means we can make air to breathe, and it means we can make the oxidizer for the combustion. Now, how can biology help with the methane part? So these astrobiological creatures, they're pretty peculiar because they can live for thousands of years in rocks of salt. They can survive in sulfur lakes. They can survive in space, being bombarded by space radiation. And there are methanogenes. So waste is value in biology. And so these things, they eat CO2 from the atmosphere. They can survive in permafrost soil, which is similar to the Martian surface, and they poop out rocket fuel, methane. And so using these biological systems can really help us building self-sustaining cities and become an interplanetary species. Now, there's also things like the loss of muscle and the radiation, but we will really have to think about the ethics. Should we, must we, genetically engineer astronauts for long-term spaceflight? And we have time for just one example. So the dome is the Martian Ice Dome, using water and the hydrogen molecules in it to shield astronauts or colonists from the radiation. They might even be able to work there without their pressure suits on. It takes just about 400 days to fill it, but it's doable. It can be assembled by robots because it's pretty lightweight. And so how 2030 will look like. Is it a dystopia you saw in the video, or is it a utopia where we use our skills, our talent, our passion for the better? This will really depend on the decisions we take today. So I just want to leave you with the message that these biohacking tools are not just for biologists, right? A lot of biologists or synthetic biologists are actually electrical engineers by background. They have a background in tech, high-tech computers. So there's really tremendous potential for all of us to become the co-creators of the future. And I want to leave you with my favorite quote. I think the biggest innovations of the 21st century will be at the intersection of technology and biology. Steve Jobs. Thank you so much.